Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Special Learning's ethics series that we do with Dr. Jon Bailey. We've been doing this for 6 months, and we've covered various aspects of the ethics code. We started out with a high-level overview of the entire sections of the ethics code in January. And what we've been doing is starting to go deeper into the various aspects of it so that we can put some meat on the bones, I guess, as I would say. And in this particular, for our month, this month anyway, we're going to be covering Code Section 2.0, which is Behavior Analysts' Responsibility to Clients. Triage model is a model that Dr. Bailey came up with, and we've gotten some really great feedback. I'll let Dr. Bailey talk to you about the genesis of the triage model, but we've also now incorporated the triage model in terms of how we analyze cases as well. So a case will come in, we'll try to code it so that it maps to the areas of the code, and then we apply that to a triage model. So, these are very subjective, so what's on the screen might change a little bit in terms of what Dr. Bailey, where he would put the actual violation itself. But I think that it gives you really good context in which to think about the various ethics, the severity of ethics scenarios, which will then lead you to making the right next steps. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Dr. Bailey, and if you can explain the triage model.
Okay, so the concept here is that if you're in an environment where you have multiple ethics situations coming at you simultaneously, you work at an agency, let's say, and you have a staff of 4 or 5 people, and you have lots of issues coming up, and you have to decide what are we going to do? What's the most important thing we need to deal with today? What do we have to jump on right now? This is a 2x2 model that says we'll take into account the severity of harm that could be caused by the violation, and then what's the probability of that happening. So it's 2x2, and it goes from mild to severe in terms of possible harm, and low to high in terms of probability. So if your evaluation of the ethics situation is that it could be some pretty severe harm and it's a very high probability of happening, then that would suggest that needs to be worked on first. So like Karen said, this is subjective. We don't have any data on this, but just based on my years of experience, it was my sense that some of these would possibly have harm, high probability of harm, and you really ought to deal with those first. And then there's some other things that can happen that they're clearly code violations, but the effect would be less than severe, and the actual probability is low. So that's the concept, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that as we go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a 3x3 model, Dr. Bailey, and I'm thinking maybe we should color code this so that it pops out, kind of the areas that require the most amount of, evaluation or thought behind it, like severe or high, I guess would be a quadrant where you'd want to pay a lot of attention to. We don't circulate this. Dr. Bailey presented this at the beginning of this year. I think that you're planning on incorporating this into your next book, but it is a framework that people have found extremely beneficial. And what we would like to do is, if you use it, we'd love to get feedback. I'm sure Dr. Bailey would love to get feedback from you as you start to apply this so that we can continue to refine it. Right. Moving on. Okay. Code Section 2.0, overall, Behavior Analyst Responsibility to Clients. Dr. Bailey?
So 2.0, this section has 15 subsections in it, and we're going to try to cover all of those today. And the 2.0 sets the stage for all of the subsequent items that we're going to talk about. And this one is pretty much summed up in the first sentence, which is you have an obligation to operate in the best interest of the client. And then it goes on to say the term client can be used broadly, but my interpretation of client is that it's the person that's most vulnerable in the situation, which is generally the handicapped adult or ASD child. So even though you're hired by the school system, your client is the student. You may be hired by the parents, but your client is the child. So my interpretation of this is that you have a responsibility to the person who needs careful watching over to make sure that their rights are not violated and that they're not harmed.
Okay. And as you guys will see in the triage model, when we go over examples, a lot of the scenarios that you run into, it's not so simple and clear cut. It's going to be there'll be a lot of different elements and complexities as well. And in some cases, especially overseas, when you don't have access to the resources that we have here in the U.S., you have to make a decision in terms of what's the appropriate path. And it seems to me that everything always falls back to what's in the best interest of the client or the consumer or whomever. So that typically supersedes any other ethical issues or situations that might be wrapped around that particular situation. And I think that we have a case that would illustrate that. So moving on, okay, starting to delve into the 15-point areas of the code. So 2.01, accepting clients. Dr. Bailey?
So step one in this, and the nice improvement in the new code as opposed to the guidelines, is that effort has been made to provide sort of a task analysis. So there's a sequence that's important to acknowledge here. So it starts off, your first obligation to the client is to make sure that you're qualified to work with this client, because you're going to be probably asked many times during a month to take on a client, and every single time that comes forward, you've got to say, am I qualified to do this? And there's a tendency, I think, on people's part, behavior analysts are human after all, they want to help everybody. But you got to be careful about that, because the code says that you have to operate within your range of expertise. And if you don't do that, then harm could come. So you would be applying procedures that you really don't understand how they work with that particular clientele. So that's what 2.01 says. Let's start with that in mind. Make sure that you're aware of that. And if you have to, for some reason, take on clients that you're not totally comfortable with, you've got to get supervision from somebody. So it's kind of a 1-2 operation there. Am I qualified? If I'm not qualified, can I find somebody to supervise me so that I won't mess up this case? Because I don't. Worst case is you do some harm, and that's the background for everything in the code is do no harm. So that's what 2.01's about.
So let me throw out a scenario, and it's or I guess the thought that I had. So let's assume that you are operating in a situation where you don't really have access to other people, but you have a case that well, somebody's coming to you, they're desperate, they want you to help. What would their course of action be?
Well, your obligation would be to point out, listen, I don't know about that. I had an ethics case that came to me here recently where the person, and I'm glad they wrote in, they said the mother brought this the client in, her daughter, and the daughter was anorexic, and she had been losing weight consistently, and they tried a bunch of stuff and nothing worked, and now she wants me to help her, and she was writing me to say, I don't know anything about anorexia. Can I take this case? And I had to write back and say, I don't think so. That's a life-threatening condition, is anorexia. And so as much as you want to help, and as much as you like this parent, and as much as you're a sincere person, you could actually hurt somebody. In this case, the person could die on your watch if you don't know what you're doing. So I said, you need to look into what anorexia is, where the treatment centers are, find out who in the country has that expertise, and give that information back to the parent. And then you could offer to help, get them hooked up with one of these agencies. But that's the proper thing to do. And it's simply not right for you to take on cases that you're not qualified for.